Good morning. I just finished reading an article in my local newspaper, The Oregonian. I found it especially disturbing for a litany of reasons. The article was an interview with 3 Oregonians who were forced out of their jobs due to Kate Brown's vaccine mandates. This is a highly depressing and completely avoidable disaster of a topic, but here we go. In the case of these 3 Oregonians, you have one person citing constitutionally protected religious reasons for not being vaccinated. That should be cut and dry. If this person has private religious beliefs, which they do logically explain in the article, that makes the vaccine not an option for them, that's not a variable that can or should ever be used against them to any capacity. The freedom to religion without punishment is clearly mandated by the United States Constitution. This isn't a gray area. Ladies and gentlemen, this is America. We don't punish people because they have different religious beliefs than us. In 2001, I know that's a long time ago, but it's not that long ago, I watched the Twin Towers in New York City have airplanes flown into them by people who justified the punishment up to and including murder of people who disagreed with their beliefs. At that point in time, we called that terrorism. Fast forward to 2021, now, when you guarantee someone's death, like Brigham and Women's Hospital in Massachusetts, by denying them a life-saving heart transplant, one that they were already promised and told they would receive, but has suddenly become ineligible due to his beliefs not supporting the vaccine. Oh, and what's the hospital's defense for this? I quote, "Its policies are in line with the recommendations of the American Society of Transplantation and other health organizations." Great, sure. You're just doing what everybody else is doing, which absolves you of all moral responsibility, right? Kind of like the brainwashed citizens who abetted Nazi Germany. They weren't bad people. They were just people who took their direction from a misguided and evil tyrant. No correlation here at all, none whatsoever. The sycophants over at CNN somehow are completely ambivalent to the 3 children, one still in the womb, being left behind in this unnecessary medical discrimination. Instead, they're spinning it as an opportunistic headline to threaten even louder that unless people cave to their belief, then this is what they have to look forward to. But sure, you guys are the protectors. You're the morally virtuous, compassionate side, right? That's your brand. That's your bread and butter. This is social decay. I wish I knew when or where we got so off track. 20 years later, we have a puppet of a president controlled by the woke mob who's actively trying to bring these immoral ideas into law, giving people the ability to do this with his federal vaccine mandates. This had me extremely scared for our future. Thank God we have the Supreme Court that saw the inherent danger there. If I can't appeal to the notion of vaccine mandates being morally wrong, maybe it would help to point out how dangerous the slippery slope is here that most people obviously haven't considered. What do I mean? Well, you just opened the door to allow employers to demand your private medical history at any point in time, giving them the freedom to hire or fire you for anything in your history they might disapprove of, such as controversial decisions like abortion or pre-existing conditions that could be interpreted as you being less fit for your job, like the fact that you had a heart attack recently, like the fact that you're seeing a therapist for clinical depression. Sure, let's just hand over all that information to big business. I'm totally sure that won't result in an infinite amount of discrimination. That's called an implication or a side effect. When you create rushed, half-thought-through legislation in response to pressure from a very specific current event, such as this pandemic, you end up undoing our protection against these abuses, exposing the entire society to risks that are infinitely worse than the risk that COVID-19 poses. The other 2 Oregonians mentioned in the article are citing natural immunity, meaning that they already have a confirmed case of COVID, and by extension, already have the antibodies in their body, the same antibodies that the vaccine would create by artificially stimulating their immune system. It's the same net effect. Kate Brown, vax mandate people. These individuals already have the same biological defense mechanism in their body as someone with the vaccine, meaning they have zero scientific need for a vaccine. Why did you force these Oregonians out of a job? These individuals pay your salary, you work for them. You've pushed them and thousands of other people into unemployment. You owe them explanations. Many people, like these individuals, are leaving the state entirely as a direct consequence of the terrible leadership demonstrated by Kate Brown, or should I say the lack thereof, People are abandoning ship. 2 of my close friends already left, went to Texas and Idaho. 2 other families in my neighborhood are leaving soon. 1 would rather live in a motorhome than here. I'm getting my affairs in order to move. And soon all you'll have left are California's rejects, who left that state and came to Oregon and brought their toxic culture with them. How did this happen? Simple answer. This is what happens when politicians care more about being woke than running their state and local economies, aka the one and only thing they were hired and received taxpayers' money to do. Normally, I would charge for my time consulting, but out of compassion for the unfortunate people who are stuck living here, I'll try to explain what's going on. Kate Brown's entire response to COVID has been a calamity since day one. For starters, on the state's website tracking COVID casualties, they have falsified data misstating the number of casualties caused by the virus, something that could be fixed with a calculation easy enough for a 5th grader to understand. I explained how to do this in my previous speech about data integrity. I highly recommend the people in your office watch that because they clearly don't know the basic principles of ethical reporting. Not to mention the idiocy of still imposing mask mandates 2 years down the road when 97% of the vulnerable elderly population have already been vaccinated and are as protected as they can possibly get. The only meaningful impact the masks are having at this point are discouraging people to shop and spend money in local businesses. You remember those, right? Those things that you decimated when you shut down the economy for months longer than you needed to? Moving on, let's talk about the bumbling idiot Ted Wheeler, mayor of woke capital of the United States, Portland, the city that exposed itself as a national embarrassment during the lockdown of the George Floyd riots. How long did it take to repair all the damage caused downtown? 18 months and counting? How many millions of dollars worth of damage was caused as a result of those mostly peaceful protests? And how is the world any different thanks to those brave protesters? Who pays for all these repairs? The taxpayers? Oh, well, it's a good thing we have one of the highest personal income tax rates in the United States. That way we can not spend it on actually policing society and instead spend it on just repairing the damage after it's been done. That makes total sense. After all, we have to do something to keep all the homeless people busy. Get this, I'll tell you about a romantic first date I had in Portland, 100% true story. I took my dog to meet someone in Laurelhurst Park, and 3 minutes into the date, before I even had a chance to get to know the person, my dog was brutally assaulted by the attack dog of a pair of drug dealers. I had to chase their dog down and tackle it to save my dog's life. After which I called the police to let them know that there were drug dealers hanging out in the public park and that their attack dog was just freely attacking people. What did they do? Nothing. Of course. They told me they couldn't even send anybody. Why? Because they were handling active riots. Oh, well, that's reassuring. By the way, it's not the drug dealer's fault. They just follow their clientele. The entire park had become yet another homeless encampment, a phenomenon happening in every other neighborhood of the city. Don't take my word for it, just search Portland homelessness on YouTube. I've refused to set foot downtown since I watched a man injecting heroin into his leg in broad daylight. I watched him stumble down the busy sidewalk at 5 p.m., strung out, with blood running down his leg, frightening everybody within 20 feet of him, who are just praying that they can make it home safely to work. It doesn't seem like an unreasonable ask when you're taking 10% of my entire income that you'd be able to offer basic protections to me as a citizen when I'm walking down the street. But it's obviously a much higher priority to make sure impressionable 6- and 7-year-olds in our schools are taught that they might actually be some newly created rainbow-haired gender, whichever one happens to be trending on TikTok this week, #priorities. Our school system is a complete joke, 42nd in the nation to be exact, and you wonder why. Maybe because you don't teach our children productive ways to apply their talents. Instead, you concentrate on accommodating the feelings of the woke mob. I'm sure these children will appreciate that when they're trying to find a job that pays more than $30,000 a year with their worthless degree in gender studies. Fortunately, they have a great backup plan because they've been misled into thinking that all the struggles in the world are due to sexism or racism or some kind of form of oppression. It couldn't possibly be that life is inherently a struggle for all of us, and at the end of the day, it's individual accountability and work ethic. Those are the things that are actual leading indicators of lifetime earnings. No. If you don't make as much money as somebody else, it's because you're obviously a victim of oppression. It has nothing to do with how hard you're working and your ability to delay instant gratification for future benefit. Great work brainwashing our youth into thinking many of the people responsible for laying the groundwork for the single most liberated and successful country in the history of the world, plot twist, were actually terrible people who need to be erased from the history books because the societal norms of 150 years ago aren't the same as 2022. So instead, let's just fill the curriculum with whatever pamphlets you collected from the bathroom floor of a local strip club. Which, by the way, we have more of per capita than any other city in the nation. There's some local business to celebrate being #1 on. Don't get me wrong, I don't have anything against strip clubs, but it's a little hypocritical to applaud yourself for being so highly progressive and breaking the shackles of oppression, all the while endorsing the widespread objectification of women. But hey, the economy is on life support, so if that's how we're going to make our money, so be it. Meanwhile, your mask mandates, which the majority of other states have woken up and long since dropped because they realized they were ineffective at stopping the spread of COVID. They're even less helpful than the vaccine in that regard, but still you insist on enforcing them. So businesses are forced to endure less foot traffic and visits to their stores, which means less revenue. That's not my opinion. That's a basic concept of brick and mortar retail commerce. Of course, why would I expect you to be able to interpret that data when you still think every human corpse with a trace of COVID-19 virus in its system was another person killed by COVID? Another blatant and misleading lie you've clutched to in order to keep your citizens desperately afraid and looking for mommy and daddy government to save them. And save them from what? From a virus that the most vulnerable Oregonians, our most elderly population, are already 97% vaccinated against. And in healthy individuals is less likely to cause meaningful harm than simply walking around exposed to the vagrants downtown. Between completely incompetent Kate Brown and Portland's imbecile mayor Ted Wheeler, I wouldn't trust either of these two to govern their way out of a cardboard box, which coincidentally is what half the population of Portland are now living in. Great work. Pacific Northwesterners truly do love the outdoors, maybe not so much that they want to live permanently out there, but hey, maybe I'm wrong. I'm seeing a lot of tents out there. Living in Portland, Oregon is basically like when you have two parents who think discipline is cruelty, so you end up raising overgrown 30-year-old adults who behave like petulant children who think it's a hate crime whenever someone disagrees with their woke beliefs. Agreeing to disagree used to be called freedom, now it's called oppression. Let's all congratulate Kate on her progressive identity politics campaign. It successfully divided the state so badly that its most well-known city tried to burn itself down. That looked great on the national news, keep Portland weird, more like keep Portland the hell away from me. I genuinely don't know what either of their political goals are, but if they're something along the lines of have a city and state in which people trust their neighbors and feel safe walking around the community, somehow even despite having all of the budgetary resources of the entire state government, plus federal aid, the best you've managed to do is blow the whole budget on gasoline, pouring it into the dumpster fire that is a city based entirely around catering to a loud minority of victimology. And now, as if segregating everybody based on their race and gender wasn't destructive enough, your latest brilliant idea to divide people into tribes, vaccinated versus unvaccinated, well, this has to be your finest, most self-sabotaging work yet. Good job, Kate. I genuinely don't know when or if the light bulb will ever come on for people who still think vaccination rates are the only way our country emerges from this pandemic. I mean, at what point do I get to start calling people who don't comprehend the middle school biology lesson of natural immunity science deniers also? This is exactly why you see the right alleging that the left are authoritarian control freaks, because in this situation, it's clear that the left don't even care at this point if you have the antibodies in your blood or not. It's not about COVID, it's not about saving lives. They care much more about whether or not you share their beliefs, whether or not you are in their group. It's about being in their club. If you adhere to their required beliefs, you're in. If not, you're not. Only problem here is that their club isn't some cool treehouse in your neighbor's backyard. The club they're trying to reign over is having access to gainful employment, medical care, the ability to participate in society, practice your religion. Heaven forbid you have a different religion, no job for you. Have a different interpretation of the science than them? I sure hope you don't need medical care. Ask any questions about any of this? You're sharing misinformation. You're an evil person who doesn't care about humanity. Ever heard of communism? This is why people like me speak up. Because I know the role of government is to serve the people, not to rule the people. Whether Ted Wheeler or Kate Brown know this, I'm highly skeptical based on the obvious and embarrassing shit show that is both of their jurisdictions. Anyway, at this point, it just feels like punching down, so I think that's enough commentary for now. I'd love to hear what you think. article are citing natural... Gilbert! Enough with the snoring, man. Gilbert's over here interrupting the speech. He's like, Dad, enough already. You're getting fired up.